good evening, or in fact,
Hello.
it may well be good morning. You're watching the Car Sim and Race Driver Show with me, Hugh Hattrick, and a very special guest all the way from Tasmania. It is Charlie Rosco. Good morning, Charlie.
How are you?
I am very well indeed. And it's great to see you here this morning, and all of the people in the chat who have come all the way from the Southern Hemisphere, who are watching from the other side of the world, and for, of course, all the guys from Europe and across the globe. A very warm welcome. So, Charlie, it's fantastic to have you on the show. You've got a huge following. Yeah. Oh, very welcome. We've finally completed the Team Rock. The Team Rock group is here. I believe we've got Kireth in the chat as well, and I know obviously Rory might pop in at some point as well. And we've had Callum before on the chat, so maybe he'll come in as well and ask you some questions. But I will ask you the question that nobody gets away with. They all have to answer it. How did your love for gaming? How did it all begin?
Yeah, so I suppose I was pretty late to gaming in general. I grew up watching motorsports, so my dad was into Formula One, MotoGP, and World Superbikes. So that's, I guess, what I watched as well growing up. And I must admit, I didn't play a lot of video games or racing games when I was younger. Probably something I got a little bit more into as an adult. But I do remember fondly sort of three games, I guess, from that era that I did play a little bit. One was Colin McRae. The original Colin McRae.
Yeah.
One was Shame on Cricket 99, which I think was called Brian Lara Cricket 99 in your part of the world.
Yeah.
And the third one was Formula One or F1 1997, F1 97.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going back a little bit. That's showing my age. But that was a game that I really did spend a lot of time playing back then. They had Murray Walker as a commentator. So it really was a wonderful game. Spent a lot of time playing it. And yeah, moving on, I guess I'll jump forward to about 2012 when I decided with a friend of mine, Willie, we bought F1 2012. It had been a fair while between drinks for me. And we got right into it. We really started playing it a lot online. We set up a championship against the AI just on controller at that time. And then we went for a little holiday to Sydney. And whilst we were in Darling Harbour, we were walking through sort of a shopping plaza of some description there. And we walked past a shop that was set up with a bunch of simulators in it. And that was pretty wild for us. And we went in and it seemed very expensive, which it was, to be fair. But it was a whole bunch of simulators and they were all running R Factor.
Oh, yeah.
And we were able to pick the track and pick the car. And we sort of jumped in it. And we ended up having a really, really cool time. We just thought it was the duck's guts. You know, we really thought it was wonderful. And, you know, we sort of came home. We started looking around to see if there was anything in Tasmania that was similarly set up, and there wasn't. So we just looked around at how much something like R Factor cost. And it was cheap. At that point, it was 2012, 2013, whatever it was at that time. It was really, really cheap. So we grabbed it and started playing on a controller, and we ended up joining some clubs and doing some league racing, all on an Xbox controller. We kept that very secret because they were very, very. They had a lot of. You had to be on a steering wheel, otherwise you were going to ruin everyone's race. And as soon as some random joined and they took everybody out, they were quick to go, I bet you he's on a controller. So we kept it very quiet, but we were just on an Xbox controller, and it just escalated from there. Next thing you know, we're both buying steering wheels, and I went through the Logitech catalog from the G25 to the 7 to the 9, and fast forward to now. Yeah,
fantastic. So you've had a really wide gaming experience then, and the early F1 games, I used to love them. I have to admit, they were so much fun, and the noise and the speed, and you had different commentators as well. I'm sure one of them, Murray Walker, was and Martin Bundle were the commentators, so that it was quite fun. Even if you're playing the AI, obviously before the multiplayer, it was great fun to race against them. And what was there anything that really stood out for you playing F1 and things like that?
Well, I mean, given that I watched it, I suppose I always took a little bit, but like as fun as Colin McRae was, I think I always took to that accuracy. I like to just do lap after lap and try and hit the perfect apex and try and, do the perfect thing. And Formula One really was about the only game at the time that offered. This will upset some people, but I did play the original Gran Turismo and did not like it. I think I played Ridge Racer and didn't like it. And a lot of those older games I just couldn't get into. Formula One was the only thing that scratched that itch. So that's sort of what I stuck with for a long time. Yeah, but
because I think the early games, especially in F1, they did have a sense of realism and especially if you follow F1. And it is so, because any motorsport fan or F1 fan, they want to be as close to the action as possible.
Absolutely.
And that's what brings you to it. So whenever they brought out a new one, I remember getting like 2010, and then I was at 12, and then 13. And every time they brought out a new one at that stage, it was like the graphics got a bit better. You could do a bit more with it. The engines sounded a bit better. It was always quite fun. And at the time, I don't think Gran Turismo really had all of that. They had some good combinations.
Yeah.
But I think when you did the F1 car, they were like really hard to drive. And also you would go through a set of tires in a race in like 5 laps. And
do pit stops and do all sorts of, it was trying to replicate real life. And I suppose I often say on my channel, I don't care for the made-up tracks in Gran Turismo Sport. I really like the real ones. And I think at the time, that's partly why I didn't love games like Gran Turismo and Ridge Racer and things like that. I think that's what it was called. I didn't love it at the time because they were just made-up tracks. You couldn't replicate real life. Yep, they had some real cars, but that was it. And the tyre screeching noise, which still hangs around to the day, that brings back painful memories. I just couldn't do that tyre screech noise. It was horrendous.
Because that's it. It does definitely. Yeah, it bears with you. Now we've got some quick questions here, and one from one of your Team Rock teammates here, Kireth Kart.
Hello, Kireth.
A question for Charlie: what is it like having to turn the opposite way for corners than us Brits?
Yes, well, when you're upside down, you do need to get that into your brain, but you just adapt to it, over time. It's like you get used to purchasing new items for the house and you just go home and you screw them to the roof, and that's as simple as that. It's just how we live down here.
I knew there'd be a question like that coming. That's it. And we've got another one from Piosco. It says, ask him about barbecuing cows and flies away.
Oh dear, yes. So a stream a long time ago. I was testing out. I'm getting back to my motorcycle side, which obviously I don't do a lot of on the channel. But I was trying out the Isle of Man game, Isle of Man TT, I think it was called. And we just got onto the topic of barbecuing chickens by essentially putting a beer can up the chicken's rear end, sitting that on the barbecue. And it's really, really nice to baste the chicken in Vegemite, believe it or not. Kind of soaks into the chicken, and it's just really nice. We sort of got onto that topic, and somehow we just started getting a bit crazy and tried to upscale that and wondered if we could use a keg instead of a beer can and a cow instead of a chicken, and and try and I think it was a shipping container as a barbecue to try and put the cow in. It was ridiculous, but it's a legacy that's stuck around anyway.
No, that's the thing. And we've got Rory as well, who has joined the chat, and Darren Turner too. So we've got lots of guys at Lippy Racing, Race Fan. They're all in here watching in the chat. And feel free to ask some questions. Just put it in capitals for me so we can put it out to Charlie. So how did your obviously you started your channel, you've been going for a few years. In terms of your Gran Turismo experience, because you're quite now well renowned for that, how did that all come about? How did that develop?
So going back pre-YouTube, so this isn't actually my first YouTube account. I have had one prior, but it was very there was no commentary over it. It was just uploading videos and that sort of thing along the way. But that's how I had the gear, like the capture card and whatnot, to be able to do it first. And that channel does still exist, but I'm not going to tell you what the name of it is. But so essentially, it was Gran Turismo 6, I think, was the first one I kind of bought, and I thought I'm going to try, because I did, to be fair, whilst I didn't like the old Gran Turismo, I think GT4 was the first one I got given the prologue. Yeah, if you remember back when they did the prologues first, and I played that and I really enjoyed it. I actually really did enjoy it. So I got into Gran Turismo 4 a bit. Fast forward down to Gran Turismo 6, which I think was a PS3, was it?
Oh yeah. PSG, yeah.
And I bought that and I got right into it, and I actually had a steering wheel and everything. So when Gran Turismo Sport came out, I thought, well, I'll get on top of this. And my YouTube channel had started, but it was nothing really. I was basically doing podcasts about real racing with a couple of friends. We'd release one video every now and again, and I kind of started it as a sim racing channel, but not too much. And it was actually the launch of Formula One. Geez, was it 2017? It's feeling like so long ago now. I think at the launch of F1 2017, I decided to live stream it, and I'd never really live streamed anything before. I just hit live off the PlayStation 4, and so I suddenly had a bit of an influx of people watching, and it bumped up to I think I went from about 14 subscribers to about 58 subscribers.
Wow!
Off about 2 Formula One streams. So then when Gran Turismo Sport launched, I thought, well, I want to get that. I want to try it. I had a good time with the last Gran Turismo. So I'll get that, and I'll hit live stream. I'll hit go, and I can do it opening night. And things were a little bit different back then. So Australia kind of gets time gated now, and we wait till 4 p.m. for games to launch and whatnot. But back then, as soon as it hit midnight, and of course we're in the future, so it hits midnight. The game's not come out in a lot of parts of the world, and I've got it. So so I decided to live stream the opening night of Gran Turismo Sport, and I had a bunch of viewers. I don't remember the numbers now, and they'd probably seem small by today's standards, but back then I couldn't believe it. And I just started making Gran Turismo Sport content, videos primarily, which was my comfort zone. And then I guess I fell into streaming a little bit more, and and I had a good time with it overall. It was nice to be online racing people, which is really what I liked. That's what I enjoyed doing.
Yeah. Can you remember your first online racing experiences on Gran Turismo? Were they good, bad, or in between?
So I'm just trying to remember. I believe initially I had a good time. I think in the early stages, everyone was fairly decent. You still had the first corner heroes, but really that was about your main concern. If you could sort of stay out of trouble into T1 at Monza, you were pretty good. Not that Monza was in the game back then, but you know what I mean. And it was otherwise okay. It kind of got because the game really exploded, and I don't believe anyone really could predict how big Gran Turismo Sport was going to get, especially in the YouTube world. I mean, what big Gran Turismo Sport channels existed, or Gran Turismo channels, existed prior to GT Sport? Wouldn't have been a lot. No one really. And I think as popularity picked up and a lot more people got on the game, that's when I think driving standards started to go up and down, and then the penalty system got too tight and then too loose, and now it doesn't exist at all. So,
It can be
interesting.
It can be. I remember my first kind of going. I think it was really GT Sport, to be fair, that I ever did the multiplayer on. I was quite nervous the first time. I think it was my first race was in Suzuka, but I managed to finish the race. I thought, well, that was at least an achievement, and I wasn't last. So it was something. But it could give you the sweats when it's your first little time, because it was, it's a great game to play. And it's so competitive, but as you say, it has its ups and its downs, and we've had all these things with different penalties. So it will see where it all goes and how it all works. Now we've got another question here from Kireth Kart, and he says, "Does having such big stones limit the number of sim rigs you can fit into?"
Look, I don't believe that I have that issue to be concerned with. So the sim rig I have now, which will eventually be replaced. It's been ordered for about 2 months, but I don't know how to answer that one with a serious face. But thank you for your question, Kireth. It was wonderful.
Now that's the thing. Now I have Rue Mar Experience is asking, as you're from Tasmania, does Charlie like their famous whiskey?
Not particularly. I'm wondering if you're thinking of the Lark Distillery. I think that's probably one of the more famous whiskies down here. I've tried it a couple of times, and it's fine. It's fine. It's not, and it's not cheap here either. If you're wondering if it's quite cheap, because it's very expensive.
Lots of extra taxes, aren't they? They tend to do that.
And Australia is unbelievable for taxes on alcohol. So, there is no cheap alcohol here, unfortunately. But, I don't. No, and this will sound this will turn people off, but I actually prefer a blended Scotch over a single malt, and you pretty much only get single malts down here. So, yes, that probably doesn't make my palate sound very sophisticated, but that's the reality of it.
No, that's absolutely fine. Now, we've got a question from Kaya247, if I pronounced that right. I hope. What track from Australia and New Zealand would you like to see added to GT Sport or sim racing in general?
Yes, so that's a tough question because there's a lot of really good tracks around. Obviously, Bathurst is in everything, so I can leave that well alone. You've got things like Phillip Island, which is a really great racetrack, although I must admit, I love it on motorbikes. Absolutely, one of my favorite tracks in the world for motorbikes, and I have actually ridden there myself. But not for cars so much. And Sydney Motorsport Park is probably, or Eastern Creek as it was once known, that's another more of famous international circuits for Australia. But again, that's it doesn't always bring out the best racing. It's kind of a big horsepower track. So I don't know. I think the Pukekohe track in New Zealand is a really cool, fun track. And I think that something like that in a game like Gran Turismo Sport or iRacing would be wonderful. It's not a particularly big track. It's about, think Tsukuba in size. It's short, but it is fantastic. I do really enjoy, that circuit.
Yeah, I know that sounds fantastic. Sounds great. Now we've got a great question here from Jerry. And Shawnsley has joined us as well. We've got a big viewing now. We're up to over 16 in the chat and in watching, which is fantastic. Now, Jerry has said, what racing event that you haven't been to so far would you most like to go to?
Well, as embarrassing as it is, we've not been to the Formula One Grand Prix in Melbourne. We were scheduled to go to Singapore last year, but we cancelled that with the pandemic, obviously. And we were intending to go to Victoria this year for the F1, but rather embarrassingly, and again showing my age, the last time I attended a Formula One Grand Prix, Ayrton Senna won it. So that's that was in Adelaide, and I was just a wee child, but yes, I was there. That was the year at Port 91, I think, Paul Bithron. But the event I'd most like to go to, I mean, did you specify within my country? If it's in within
anywhere, I think anywhere, it could be, anywhere at all.
Spa. I know Monaco maybe, but Spa. I want to go to the Spa Formula One Grand Prix. I've done Misano in Italy for the MotoGP, which was insane. I got to watch Valentino Rossi win, which is huge. But I think now Formula One in Spa. That's my answer. Yeah. Now that's the thing. I can't believe you were in Adelaide when Senna won. I think it was, as you say, it was 91. I saw Senna win at Donington in 93. Oh, very nice. That's the only Grand Prix I've been to. And what an experience. Just an incredible day out. And to see people like that, at that time, they were the big stars, and they just head and shoulders above anything else as an event, you know. It's quite a thing. And Donington Park was because it was a wet race as well, kind of wet and dry and everything in between. So it's an amazing thing. And when you think you've witnessed a kind of hero of F1 win a race, and you would have seen Mansell, Prost, Alesi, Berger, all of them. They're all there at the time. So it was, that's right. I don't remember a lot, to be fair, but I was there. All I really remember was how torrential the rain was and how miserable I was as a young child. But at least I had that fond memory that I did go there, and I did get to see the legends of the sport. I got it for my 18th birthday. And that was the thing. So it was an amazing experience. And I can still remember the difference in the sounds of the engines, you know, from the Ferraris to the Renaults, to the Benettons and the whole thing, and the McLarens. So it was phenomenal. Absolutely. And the volume. I remember I had earplugs. Obviously being so young, they had earplugs and then earmuffs over the top, and they were still loud. They were, I don't know how I'd go now as an adult, but those that would have been V10s then, wouldn't it? They V10s and V12s. Loud. Because I remember that the Renault was quite a hard engine to hear. It wasn't rough, but it was coarse. But the Ferrari V12s used to sing, and their engine was quite different, and it made this great sound as it kind of went up the rev range. So you didn't have to put your hands to your ears quite for that. But the other ones, they were a bit rougher. But I know that's the thing. Well, we've got some great questions here from Uncle Tashi, and says a couple of questions. First, is the Targa Tasmania still going? And if so, would you do it? And in which car? So yes, Targa Tasmania is still going, as far as I'm aware, and they did run it. I think they did run it last year, despite all, although with reduced numbers, obviously, because it's difficult to get around in between state borders and whatnot. Although that's freeing up now, to be fair, but I would like to do it, but it is horrendously expensive. So I have met and spoken with a few people that have done it, and it's a very, very expensive event. And this is before you worry about which car you own, drive, race. In an ideal world, yes, I would absolutely love to do Targa Tasmania. And the car I'd like to do it in, for me, it's going to be boring. I'm sorry, but I'd like to buy an FD RX-7 with a big turbo 13B in it, and that would be me in my happy place. Well, one of my first interviews I ever did was with Andrew Cohen,
who was the boss of the Mitsubishi rally team. And in his heyday, when he was a rally driver, he did the London to Sydney race in 10 days, and he won it. So it was, you know, it was an incredible. That was back, I think, in the late 60s, early 70s, I think. That was to be something else to do 10 days from London to Sydney. You know, and in old cars, and it was just flat out the whole way on these different stages in different countries. That
what a wonderful world it was back then. Yeah,
absolutely. And just to say, for everyone who's watching, if you've not already subscribed to Charlie's channel, the link is in the description there. So please go over to it and subscribe. He's got fantastic racing content. And if you like this channel as well and like lots of sim racing interviews, then please hit the subscribe button and notification bell, and you'll never miss a video. Now let's get back to the questions that are here for Charlie. Now, Racer14 GLR has asked, how does Charlie like the new supercars like they were on Forza Motorsport?
Geez, when was the last Forza? I think Forza 6 I dabbled in a little bit. And I think they only had one supercar, didn't they? Wasn't it an older one? No, maybe not. I can talk about the supercars as they are on iRacing, because that's where I've been using them more recently. And I think they're a wonderful car to drive. They're obviously a fair way removed from road cars, like they once were. I was just discussing earlier about these RX-7s, which are the Australian touring cars, which precedes the supercars. That was the national series back then from the mid-'80s. And the good thing about them was they were road cars. And, of course, that's what all of us old nostalgia type of minds like to look back at, when they took a road car, they made it fast. And, I mean, you go back far enough through the history of the Bathurst 1000, and at one point you were only allowed to do a pit stop with the tools that came standard in the boot of the car. That was it. Goodness. So you had to use the old tire iron and everything to change it.
My goodness.
That's the kind of racing I love, and that's why I love improved production and you know, classes like that these days. But the modern supercars, they're really, really good, fun cars to drive. You know, we've still got the sequential shift at the moment, which may be changing to the paddle. I'm not sure. But I think that's a unique thing, and I think they should keep it, to be honest, whilst it's less efficient, and we know that. I think it's more fun, and there's huge horsepower. And they've got no downforce. I think I recently said in a video they had about 600 kilos, but I think that's well wrong. I think it's about 350 kilos of downforce. At 300 odd, it's nothing. You know, they are big tin tops, 1.5 ton, with a huge amount of 650 horsepower, and the back tires on them are not that wide considering the horsepower, so they're just a mental car to drive, and a lot of fun. I don't really have a preference on brand. Obviously Holden no longer exists, but beyond that, they're the same chassis. It's a homologated chassis. Their engines they're not far away from a single class championship. You can just stretch your own shell over it, basically. So they're a fair way removed, but really, really good fun. Good fun cars.
Oh, that's the thing. Now, Olympic Racing. Olympic he's always been coming into our streams and asking good questions. And he said the Adelaide Street Circuit it must be the one that I remember Adelaide because it was such a good bit. I mean, there was the Mansell his tire blowout and back in '86 when he was up for the championship. And also, I think was it '89, he had a great battle as well with Senna. And I think he had a clash with Senna in maybe was it '92 in Adelaide. But there were all sorts of. I mean, there were always. It was the last race of the season, and it was always the one that was either a big build up to a championship, or it had a sense of great fun. What's kind of been your best memories of watching F1 and the races? What's kind of your favourite ones that you've seen
at Adelaide, specifically, you mean? Yeah,
or anywhere, anyone that you like.
Geez. So, I mean, Adelaide was good. But an unpopular opinion, I don't dislike Albert Park. I think Albert Park is a brilliant circuit to drive. And I think we've seen some good races there. It's hard to kind of pick out what a favourite of mine would be in Australia. And I guess the other thing
anywhere in the world, and anywhere in the F1 on the F1 calendar.
Geez, favourite moment. Hard to tell. I must admit, I do very fondly remember when Mark Webber in a Minardi, God, I think it was 5th position in the end he got. That was a that was a phenomenal race, and we hadn't had an Australian in the championship doing anything much for a very long time. Probably Alan Jones, I'd imagine, going back to the 80s, and for him to get that in a Minardi was unbelievable. That one sticks with me, but also, you know, Daniel Ricciardo's first win was pretty great. Anything Australian success based has been fantastic.
Yeah, I think it's amazing, isn't it? When you see a standout race and a standout performance. I always remember Fuji 2007 when Lewis Hamilton won, and it was horrendous conditions. And they hadn't really raced at Fuji that much, but I don't know if you've been raced there since. There's only a couple of Grand Prix at Fuji in the last wee while. But it was almost like a mist across the circuit. And I think the first 20 laps had been with a safety car, and they finally allowed them to get going. And literally you couldn't see anything. And then I think it was Kubica and Hamilton had a clash, but they managed to keep going. And then Hamilton eventually won, and his teammate Alonso had a huge crash at one of the hairpins, and that put him out. And eventually Hamilton went on to win the race. And I always remember Martin Brundle saying at the end of it, he said, if Lewis wins the championship, it was worth it for that one race only. So that was a championship winning, you know, kind of attempt. And I think when you see an amazing, kind of exceptional race like that, it makes you think, that's the one to watch, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many wonderful things and quirky things that happen in Formula One. I mean, it's hard to forget races like what was it back when they had the dual tires? It must have been Michelin and Bridgestone, was it?
Oh yeah,
one of them was deemed unsafe, and we ended up with
6 cars on the grid.
I think you had 2 up the front, which might have been, was it the Ferraris? I have to jog my memory.
Yeah, I think the Ferraris, because Schumacher took part, and I think there was at the Force
and then a bunch
India.
of backmarkers.
Force India, and then there was somebody else in between, wasn't it? That was it. That was crazy. That was in wild. Indianapolis.
That's right. Yeah. That was wild, but so many great moments. And MotoGP, not to be outdone, recently replicated that as well with I think it was Miller started on the grid all by himself. Everyone else started from pit lane because they were ducked in to change tyres. So
that's right.
Yeah,
that was crazy. That was really crazy, wasn't it?
Mental. Yeah.
But, now we've got a great question from Shanzi. He says, will you do another Bathurst 1000? And if so, will you take on a partner and not get disqualified?
So obviously I did not expect to be successful in that at all. And I think if you had have said you're going to do the Bathurst 1000 without a single incident point and come second, I think I'd have called you a liar. There was no way that was ever going to happen. I don't know to this day how I did it. So I never expected it to be an issue that I got disqualified. I thought, well, I'm probably going to be sitting in the pits half the race anyway, so I may even quit. I would definitely do it again, and I would definitely take someone to ensure that my results are counted. In an ideal world, it'd be nice to try and do it again almost solo. So have someone come in, do their 25% of an equal share or a fair share, and get their minimum amount of laps done without crashing the car, and then just let me do the rest of the race. I think that would be a lot of fun and give me a nice little break in the middle as well, because they'd probably do one full tire stint or something. So that's I would do it again. That was a big challenge, mind you, but I would, Yeah,
fantastic. And what's been your biggest successes then in GT Sport? Have you done a lot of FIA? I saw you doing FIA yesterday in the North Life. But what's been your greatest kind of moments of success for GT Sport?
In GT Sport, I mean, going back a couple of years when I'm getting back into it now, but I used to play it a lot more when it launched, and I did do a lot more FIA type stuff. And, it was always nice to see my name there as the number one in my state and my area. And, I think at one point I might have been first or second or something for, was it Mercedes manufacturer in my region? Very briefly. Blink and you miss it, but I was. So
that's pretty good going.
Yeah, just little things like that. Probably the biggest success I would say for Gran Turismo Sport is the races I've organised through my community. We've done a lot of championship races type of thing, but we've done a couple of enduros as well, and some of them have been really, really fun. And we've tried all sorts of things. We've had team races where my wife came and picked out of a hat who the teammates were, so that there was no stacking teams and whatnot. You got who you got. There's all sorts of crazy stuff we've done, but that's what I look back most fondly on is the custom sort of races, I guess, we did as a community. Yeah,
that sounds fantastic. Now we've got another famous chat member here. It is Gary Gilmore. has joined us in the chat, and he's asked you a question. What is the one thing you're looking forward to on GT7?
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing how the online multiplayer works. I mean, that's my bread and butter. And look, I'll dabble in the offline stuff for sure. We'll have a bit of fun doing that, and it'll be fun doing up some cars. And it'll be nice to, hopefully they have a wide range of Mazdas again and some RX-7s that I can modify and do up and put 20B Bridgeports in and all sorts of crazy stuff. But the online racing is probably where I'm most interested in, and I have some concerns that it could well be exactly the same as GT Sport, just transplanted in to what was GT6. And I really hope that's not the case. I would love to see some bigger races, some more endurance-based races, not necessarily like iRacing, big long ones, but at least races that go for an hour and things like that. That would be so much fun. So I'm hoping there's a daily race D, I suppose, and the D's are much longer, longer race. Yeah.
Because that's the thing, daily race A and B are really short. I always kind of feel they can just do with a bit more, even just a few more laps each. That would help. And then obviously the longer daily race C, and as you say, a D would be quite good to have more laps and a bit more time for that. And Piosco has said, greatest success in GT Sport, a live stream without technical difficulties.
Yeah, wow, that seems like a wide. I think I'm better these days, to be fair, but I built my channel on technical difficulties, man. I used to have some absolute shockers. And if it wasn't me, it was Gran Turismo Sport. And if it wasn't either of us, it was the PlayStation or the steering wheel. There was always something going on, but that's okay. Kept it interesting. And these days I have very few technical difficulties, and it's boring now. So I'm going to have to start pulling things out with my feet as I'm driving and whatnot. I know to bring them back.
Oh, that's the thing. Now we've got another question, and it's a real petrol head question. This one, and it is from Rumai. He says, "What is Charlie's favourite bike engine and his favourite car engine?" So it would be road for both. Bike.
Well, the car's easy, so I'll get that straight off the bat. It's a Rotary. Love Rotaries. They're the best engine ever made, and I won't be told otherwise. So that's nice and easy in the car world. What's my favorite bike engine? Geez, that's a tough one. I mean, what's my ultimate motorbike, which I don't know. Currently, I've got a Triumph Speed Triple, the 1050 version. And I love the triples. They are wonderful, the Triumph engines. I mean, very unique note. A little less interesting these days. This current one's very linear. My old Street Triple I had, which was a 2009, that was a wonderfully wild, crazy engine that had that was not linear at all, and it was wonderful to ride. But I suppose the bike I've always wanted, which includes the engine I've always wanted, is probably the Ducati 996. So not the 916, although it looks the same. But the 996, they are the rattle of the dry clutch and the Ducati engines is magnificent. The noise, the rumble they make, I just think you can't go past a Ducati. I mean, Aprilia and whatnot get close with their twins, but can't get past. It's such a shame that Ducati's gone to a 4-cylinder now in their Panigale, but that's okay.
Oh, that's the thing. I always remember the favorite engine I heard. It was at Goodwood at the Festival of Speed a few years ago, and we actually thought it was an F1 car because the sound was so strong and such an amazing sound. But it was the Ferrari Enzo FXX kind of race car. They did this wonderful. They did some amazing videos on YouTube with them, and the noise. Oh, I could have listened to that over and over again. It was unbelievable. And me and my mate, we ran to the bales at the start and finished. And by the time we got there, we just saw this thing go past in a cloud of smoke. He was doing burnouts at the start, and just incredible. But the rev range as well, it just seemed to go right up. And I thought that would be an amazing car to drive.
Absolutely.
Something like that would be the.
Unfortunately, I was just going to say I haven't heard a lot of because I suppose we don't have a lot of big motorsport events in Tasmania and whatnot. And I've travelled to the mainland for a few, but we miss out on hearing some of those cool engines, and we don't have a Goodwood Festival of Speed. And, Target Tasmania, you get a lot of Porsches because they're fast when it comes to the street. So you're used to hearing that. But the one car that, what's it called? The Pagani Zonda. It's not a car I'm particularly fond of in terms of looks, which, that's my own hot take. But I did hear that engine in person, and it was in anger. He was giving it the full biscuits, and that did sound magnificent. I have to say that was a wonderful sounding engine.
that used to be on GT Sport as well. I'm sure the Pagani's onto that. I remember used to use that for some of the faster races. That was always one you would kind of choose. And yeah, it did sound amazing. But you could tune that car up and did about 300 miles an hour. But,
not as good as the Suzuki Askew. I remember doing that up back in the day, and that was a good fun car. Yeah.
I know, that's the thing. And Piosco has said, I recently got to hear a Lexus LFA. Revved inside a garage. And he says, wow, I had a smile from ear to ear. Yeah, I would join you with that. They're basically, it's almost like a race engine in that car. And the LFA is something else. But no, it's quite a machine. All these supercars are absolutely fantastic. Now, to go on to iRacing, because you went away from GT Sport for a wee while and went into iRacing. And how did you find changing over to iRacing? What was it like?
Look, I adjusted okay, I guess, because obviously my background, my roots are in R Factor, which is a totally different sort of game from Gran Turismo Sport. Yeah. That's sort of where I cut my teeth, I suppose. And I did actually dabble way back in the day in iRacing. And it was very hard. I found it very, very tough back then, but I did go and buy myself an old supercar. I think it's the free one now. It was the old, I think it was the FG Falcon from memory, something like that. And I bought that, and I bought Bathurst, and I couldn't drive it. There was back in those days, the tyre model was horrendous on the supercars, and you just couldn't make them turn. And I don't think my equipment was good enough. So I dabbled in iRacing, I guess, is what I'm getting at. And I tried a few things. So it was actually okay. I was able to just slide back into something that feels a bit more familiar. I mean, if anything, Gran Turismo Sport's always been the harder thing for me to adjust to, because it feels so unlike your iRacings and your R Factors and things like that. It's very, very different feel, especially on a wheel. I find them very understeery, and the car doesn't sort of respond to weight transfers like you might expect. So Gran Turismo Sport's the harder one for me to adjust into, and I feel much more comfortable sliding back towards iRacing. Yeah.
And do you have any now your kind of favorite combinations in iRacing? What kind of races do you like to take part in?
Well, what I've really enjoyed this year, I really didn't touch the supercars at all. How very un-Australian of me, I know. But I mainly just stuck to the GT3 and GTE. The P2s are always a lot of fun if you can not be a tool when you drive them. But this year I've got into the supercars and the Formula 3, the F3 car. And they've both been a lot of fun. So favourite track, Spa, but not so much in those two cars. I don't know. Watkins Glen, which is a track I really used to despise. I thoroughly like it now. It's actually surprisingly difficult and technical, and the difference between the good and the not so good on pace is huge. So I really like Watkins Glen, and I had a great time in the Formula 3 and the supercar at Watkins Glen. So there you go. That's an answer I never thought I'd give, because I never used to like Watkins Glen, but there you go. I
know it's good to get a race circuit in, and it's a real challenge. And you get there. I was doing Thea from the Amazon, her stream last night with Three's a Crowd. And on Tuesday night, I thought they're racing at Ilton Park in the Group 3. And I thought, I've never actually really raced there in that. And I thought, I better get some practice in. So I thought, right, I'll do it. It was late, very, very late at night on the Tuesday. And there was only me and one other person, somebody called Sawyer, who was, I found out was actually the guy who had pole position on the actual races. And he was like doing 134s. I was doing like 139s, and I was saying, oh, goodness me, I'm going to be, totally smashed away. But after about an hour's worth of practice, I got down to a 35.3. And I thought, well, that's not too bad, because at least it was not too far away. And I thought there's maybe a bit more time in it. And then, unfortunately, I used the 911, which was actually, I didn't think would be a car I would adapt to, but it worked quite well. But last night, I was up to 7th place. I started 7th on the grid, kept my place. And I just hit a curb, and I went off, and that was me, and I smacked into the barrier, and that was my too much damage, so it was over. But it shows even with practice it can go horribly wrong. But that was on a Sette Corsa Competizione, but it's a great game, and it's so hard, but it's good.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I'm a big fan of ACC. They did everything right except the multiplayer. And really, when I went away from Gran Turismo Sport, because I was playing iRacing back then as well, it was really a Sette Corsa Competizione that I went into. And I really do love that game. I had some great custom races there with the community, but they just didn't quite get the multiplayer right, unfortunately. But we'll see how the next one goes. The car physics, the sound, it's wonderful. I think, and I know unpopular opinion again, I think in terms of GT3 feel, sound, it's probably the best GT3 offering on the market. It's just unfortunately the multiplayers could be better. Could be better.
Yeah.
Could be more accessible. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. It's the most involving thing as well. I find that you go from Assetto Corsa to GT Sport, and it's a big difference. It's you've really got to concentrate so much. I find with ACC, well, you can kind of take a slight step back in GT Sport. It is easier to drive the cars. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, which I think is why it's popular. I mean, it's on console to start with, which opens up the audience, but I think it's also very accessible. You don't have to be particularly good, and it's going to match make you into lobbies against people of your skill level, and you can have fun. And that's what racing's about, isn't it? Sim racing's about having fun. And I think something like GT Sport is really, really good at being accessible and matching people up to their equals that they can have a bit of fun with.
So how did you all come together as Team Rock? How did it all come about?
So Rory and I did an absolute disaster of a race at Bathurst a long time ago. And I guess when you're a content creator in a particular community, which was Gran Turismo Sport at the time, and Rory was as well, I suppose you do reach out to fellow content creators because it's a tough gig sometimes, and it's nice to have someone to talk to, and I love having those two as a friend as opposed to just Team Rock that you guys see. It's nice to be able to talk with them. Because you can be in a fairly unique circumstance sometimes, and I guess that's how Rory and I can't really remember, but I'm guessing someone reached out to someone, and we had a bit of a chat and said we should do that together. Did we even start with a Gran Turismo race against each other? Maybe. I can't remember now. It's so long ago, but that's how we hooked up. And then Kireth came in via Rory, and we reunited to try again and forget the old Bathurst race of yesteryear. Where we spent most of it in the pits, and it's been great fun ever since. So no, I met Kireth through Rory, but I don't remember exactly how Rory and I first started talking.
It's a great team, and your events are always very good. We've had all of you. We've had all of you on the show now, from Callum to Kireth and to your good self and Rory. We've had all four of you take part on the show, which is great. And now Go Mojo has said. Or Go Mojo Go, it says free servers are coming to ACC next year. So hopefully the CR community will have some fun.
I think it's a step in the right direction. I don't think it fixes the problems, but it's a step in the right direction. At least you'll be able to go and set up your own custom lobby for free, which I think is a huge barrier at the moment for ACC and something they got wrong, having to purchase dedicated servers. So it's a step in the right direction. Still no matchmaking type daily races and stuff like Gran Turismo or iRacing has, who you have to suggest are the two leading racing games in the online market, I would think, anyway. But that's a start. It's a step in the right direction. At least people can go and set up an easy lobby. It doesn't cost them anything, and they can race with a couple of friends. So that's a good thing. Yeah. Oh, it's fantastic.
Now we've got lots of people in the chat. It's great to see everyone. We've got Noel, who's just joined us as well. I think you're from the other side. I think maybe from Asia. I think Noel's probably from, although you can correct me if I'm wrong on that. And I do apologise because we had Chubagetti on last week as well, and he was from the Philippines. So the time hours, the balance of time was quite good fun. So we've got lots of people watching. So please put in your questions in capital so I can read them out and ask them all for Charlie. Now, Go Mojo Go was saying pre-Bathurst there was a one-off Rory versus Charlie Rosco community race. So
yes, that's what I remember. I think that was in Brazil, if memory serves me. I have a shocking memory, so you'll have to forgive me. I'm good on remembering some details and forgetting all the little ones, but I think it was a Brazil race. Might have been the first thing we did, take each other on GT Sport, which seems about right. We're both GT Sport content creators. That makes sense. And then I think from there we probably went to the iRacing. Yeah,
that's the thing. Now, do you do any kind of like F1 as well, like the current F1 games? Do you have a go at that every so often?
I do. I did buy the last Formula One game, and I did actually enjoy it quite a bit. I live streamed a couple. I think I put out a few videos, but by and large, I guess my community is just not in the right place. So people weren't really into it. So I've done a little bit myself. offline, but I haven't really done a lot with it because, I guess I haven't live streamed or put any more videos up since I did that. But I think it's actually quite a good game. I don't mind that. They've made some steps. I bought one a couple of years ago and I wasn't fussed on it at all. Can't remember what year that was. 18,
been bringing them out every year.
Yeah.
I quite like the one they did last year with the Schumacher series on it, and they had all the kind of championship cars as well that were quite good. But,
I remember fondly F1 2013 because that really was the first one that brought out all the old retro cars, and they had all, they had everything from old Williams to Senna's cars. I think it had Mansell's Williams in it, and it even had Alan Jones's old car in there. So that was cool from going back. But I believe they have dabbled in and out of the old retro cars.
A little bit. I don't think there's so much of it this year. I was going to wait to buy mine on PC because I've always had it on PS4. But I thought now that I've got a PC set up, I'll try and get it on PC and see what the difference is like.
And you can at least get a few mods and stuff like that. You wouldn't be able to race them online, but I think you can usually get the latest championship car decals and all sorts of stuff you can generally get for the PC version. So that's where I bought it as well.
Going to get that and see how it all goes. So what would you like to do with your channel from here? Where can you see it developing?
Well, look, I think at the moment I'm back into Gran Turismo Sport for sure. And we've got Gran Turismo 7 coming, so fairly obviously, I suppose I'm going to be leading up into that, and I'm pretty excited to get on that and play that. Obviously, the iRacing keeps ticking away. Beyond that, I don't know. I don't have any long-term sort of plans. It's very much a hobby for me. I mean, I work full-time. I've got a family. I've got too many cars and motorbikes and stuff to work on. So I do this as often as I can, which is probably not often enough for a lot of people. But at the moment, it's just sort of ticking away. And, I've got a bit of content for other channels and stuff and different ideas and whatnot I'd like to do. So I don't know. Who knows? We'll find out. I don't think I'll probably ever stop creating content, but specifically for this channel, I really don't know. No, we'll find out as I go.
So you're saying you've got, you dabble in kind of doing all these cars up that you've got, and I think it's all RX-7s and things like that you have, or what kind of cars are they?
So I've got the RX-7, which is a 1981 Series 2 RX-7, which is sort of an ongoing, will probably always be a project car. I mean, it's a beautiful car now. It runs magnificently, looks nice, it's registered and all the rest. But it always needs something being done. It's 40 years old. Things always need being done. I don't want to upgrade things, and I've got a bunch of suspension sitting out there on the bench I've had for a couple of weeks and haven't put in yet. So I've always got things like that. Then I've got a WRX, Hawkeye WRX, which was my favorite shape. So I was, I'm glad to have got that one. It's a Subaru, so that needs some love. That drinks as much oil as the Rotary. People are always carrying on about oil consumption in a Rotary. Try owning a Subaru and having blow by. But great car, wonderful little car. I love them both. I've got the Triumph, as I mentioned before. And I've got a Husqvarna dirt bike as well, a big 300 two-stroke. So between the four of them, and as well as the family car, the Outback, there's always something that needs to be done. And I do most of the mechanical work on all of them as well. So
keeps you busy. Absolutely.
Very much. Yeah.
I have to admit, I don't know if you've ever seen these videos of what they call the kind of barn finders. And some of the cars that we've had in America and in Britain just are exceptional. I was watching one yesterday, I think it was a late break show, where they found an old Jaguar E-Type, or what was left of it. But some of the stuff that they do find, if it's been put in a barn and it's put maybe a tarpaulin over it, it's incredible that they can find these amazing machines. And
I love seeing things like that. And they blow the dust off and they give it a polish, and sometimes, obviously not often, but sometimes the standard paint can actually come up quite well as well. When
they do it, I'm sure I saw, I think it was a 250F Ferrari that somebody had been kept in a barn since the early 70s, and it had only done about maybe 20,000 miles, and then it had been left there for 30 or 40 years. And then they found it, and it was in really remarkable condition on its original paint, just with a few little blotches here and there, and just quite an incredible thing. But you always think, if only I could have a great uncle or an auntie that's left something, like that.
Yeah.
Can you come and tell me what this car is? You know, and you'd be like, yeah, I'll be there. You know, to kind of see what it's like.
I can take. It's not worth much, but I can take it off your hand for you if you like.
You know,
Uncle, old mate. It's just a cheapie, but I can try and get it running, fix it up, and sell it off.
Yeah,
My daddy's doing up a Series 1 Jaguar XJ6 at the moment. It's just a little project he's been working on, so not a super fancy car or anything, but a nice enough thing. And it's got a bit of heritage. So it's a Series 1, but it's also would have been just about in the first boatload to Australia, I reckon. So it's a 69 model, which is very old for that vintage. And for Australia at least, because I think they were only 68 in the UK that came out. Here's a 69. I think it would have been, judging by the plate stamp, within the first month or two of them being released in Australia in general. So that's quite a cool old thing. He took out the 2.8 litre. It's a rare manual as well because they're all auto. He's taken the 2.8 out and put a 4.2 in from the same vintage. So that's always a bit of fun. I don't know if you've ever tried to balance SU carbs, but I can't. He did a decent job, but and even then we're still looking for an expert for SU carbs. Oh, they are a nasty thing.
My father got given an old classic many years ago in the early 80s, and it was a Jaguar Mark 7 from 1951. And it was a manual, 3.5 litre manual, and it had 2 petrol tanks. And it sat outside our old house for years and years and years. And eventually we decided, right, we're going to do this thing up. And when the guy came with his tow rope to try and tow it onto the truck, and it was seized down, and the tow rope just went and just snapped as he tried to move it away. It was a big, 2-ton at least. This thing, a big, massive car. But I didn't realise they actually used the Mark 7 in the Monte Carlo Rally.
Oh, is that right?
A massive car. And I thought, goodness me, that would be a horrible car to drive, because it was really heavy and bulky. And you think it would be really tough. But I think a lot of the ones that went abroad for the Mark 7 were all automatic. So it was quite rare that it was only the manuals that they had in Britain and things. But quite a machine. I'd love an XK120. That would be the hard top one, I think, would be a lovely car. Do you think, like in GT7, because obviously I can tell you're a big car fan and a big car enthusiast, are you kind of looking forward to GT7's, the new cars, and maybe they'll have some classics as well in that?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, they're limited fun driving, those old cars in their street form, because obviously they don't, they don't go that well. But it's wonderful to be able to look at them and and take them for a bit of a jaunt around a small track or something like that. Even just jumping in an old E-Type or something like that. They're always wonderful, and as long as they get the body roll right and all the characteristics of those old cars, they're good. Yeah, they're good fun just to. That's what I kind of do for enjoyment when I'm not live streaming or making videos. I love downloading old cars like that on Assetto Corsa and such, and because there's so many mods for that. Gran Turismo Sport, you won't need those mods. It'll just be jam packed with all the old classic cars, and you'll be able to go and have a bit of fun. And something like the Goodwood track that they introduced, I think, is a nice place just to go and test old cars.
That'd be a great one.
Not so much for content creation, I don't think, but it's just nice to go and test them. I like doing that sort of stuff. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Now, do you have a few words for your community before we finish up? And then I'll ask you the same for your Team Rock. What would you like to say to your community first of all?
Look, just a big thank you to the community. It's probably the same thing you get from everyone, but honestly, the support that I get, and some of the guys that have stuck around now for the 4 years or so since Gran Turismo Sport launched, a lot of old hats there, a lot of old heads, and it's so nice to see old names pop up in the chat that have been around for a long time. So a huge thank you to you guys. The ongoing support has always been wonderful. And obviously, I'm not a giant YouTube channel or anything like that. So the advantage of that is the fact that I can remember names and I can remember interactions with people, and it's nice to have a small community. So shout out to those guys who are always there and always looking to support, even at 9 o'clock, 5 to 9 on a Monday morning whilst they're going to work or at work. It's great to see the support. In terms of Team Rock, what do I say to them? I don't know. Who knows?
Drive faster.
Yeah, that's right. It was such a shame that last race. I don't know if you caught it, but I really feel like the three of us peaked in terms of I don't know, we were just all fast. We were all consistent. We were all very clean. And one unfortunate incident through no fault of poor Rory's, who just happened to be the man behind the wheel. I really think we'd have got a great result then. So that's all right. 2022 is coming. And I'd like to get a few more podiums. Maybe we can even sneak a top step at some stage, but I don't want to put the pressure on. We're there for fun. We're not there to be super competitive and whatnot, but it's hard not to be competitive. We're there to race.
Oh, yeah.
And when we show a bit of good form and you can smell a podium.
Ooh, it's almost there, isn't it, when that happens, when you're getting there. Yeah. Well, no, I'm sure you'll do well, and I do wish you the best of luck in your races as well with Team Rock. It's always good to see you take part, and it is fantastic. And just to give you some of the quotes here from the chat as well, P.O. Sco has said, "We love you, Charlie." And Andrew Marr has said, "The Mark 7 wasn't as heavy as you think, only 1.7 tons." Andrew, you must have gone on Google to find that out. And I mean, we've always got one that knows every bit about the dimensions of a car. And there you go. Now, Kia 24/7 is at work now, but it's all good. And now I'm trying to think, who was it who said that they haven't done much work today because they've been watching this interview, which is very kind. But,
yes, very kind.
Now, as in the description, Charlie's channel is there. The link, you can go straight to it and give it a subscribe and like as well. And if you like lots of sim racing interviews, then we've got a huge catalogue. In fact, Charlie gave me a very good tip earlier on. I need to make a playlist of just the interviews alone, and you can see them all there. And if you like what we do, then subscribe to the channel, and we've got our Discord as well. So, Charlie, what's the next big thing that you're doing? What's the next big race that you're looking forward to?
Look, honestly, you've caught me at a time when I'm not 100% sure. I think we've got, we'll have a little bit coming up. I think, is it next weekend? It must be next weekend, coming up soon. A race, well, anyway, I don't know what I'm supposed to say and what I'm not supposed to say. I actually need to clarify that. Anyway, there's some stuff coming up. Lots more Gran Turismo Sport. Probably not a lot of iRacing through to January, to be honest. Now, we're looking forward to the Daytona, but yeah, lots of Gran Turismo, a bit of iRacing, and who knows what else I'll put on the channel. I was playing some Forza Horizon 5 last night. Had a good time, so I'm wondering if I even do a dabble of that, if there's a few people interested, but probably nothing massive on the horizon at the moment. I start preparing for my usual Christmas Day documentary that I've released the last 2 years, so I'll probably do another one this year, I'd suggest. Yeah.
Oh, we'll look out for that. Now that'll be the thing. Well,
look, thank you so much for having you on the show, by the way, Hugh. It's an absolute pleasure to talk to you, and I appreciate you inviting me along. And as you said, if any of my community is here and haven't hit subscribe already, or if you come and watch this as a VOD once you knock off work, please do hit subscribe and follow along. Check out the other interviews. I've been watching them all week. I've been putting them on the Bluetooth headphones as I ride to work each day on the bike. And, it's been really good. So very enjoyable.
Oh, that's fantastic. No, thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I really wish you all the best for your channel. And we'll keep in there following you and coming in on your races and see how it all goes, which is fantastic fun. And it's great to watch you. I know you were doing the North Cypher yesterday, and that was, I think nobody liked that race yesterday, wasn't it? It seemed to be it's one of these things, isn't it? It's quite a thing. Now, in 2 weeks' time, next week, we've got a guest coming in from Race Asylum. And I'm not going to tell you who they are, but there's some very big guests from Race Asylum Discord who are going to be coming through, including Gaz Sims. And in 2 weeks' time, we have a member of a Formula One team. That's right. Ooh. But you'll have to wait and see. I'm going to do a big build-up for that one. And he's also, in his spare time, has managed to win the mini championship, the mini racing championship. So that will be coming in 2 weeks' time. But it's been an absolute pleasure, though, to have Charlie all the way from Tasmania, which now coming up. It's coming up 9 o'clock. Is it 9 o'clock in the morning?
It is indeed. Yep.
So you can go back to bed. You've earned it. There with a
I won't be doing that, but thank you. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome. And to everyone in the chat, thank you very much who's been watching and listening. You've been watching the Car Sim and Race Driver Show with me, Hugh Hattrick, but a very special guest indeed, Charlie Rosco. I just now. Oh, drive fast and try not to crash. Almost forgot the crucial line. See you soon.